Hi everybody, Kate Haley here with Glazer's Camera. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. It's Wednesday already. It's November already. I don't know how that happened. I guess that's a little thing called time. But here we are, it's November, and we have a lot going on here at the store. I want to mention before we dive into today's presentation that next week we're having a sale. It's kind of a big deal. It's a fall festival sale. We're calling it the Fall Fest. And Tuesday through Thursday, we're going to have a bunch of live programming with ambassadors from brands like Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, a lot of other brands. We're also going to have a launch event for the new Nikon Z9 camera. And there's an opportunity for that event to join us in person at a studio in the Seattle area, as well as view that session online. So check out our website, go to our events page when you have a moment, and you can see everything that's happening over the next week. In addition to that fall festival, next Friday and Saturday, and I believe Sunday as well, we will have special promotional pricing over the weekend. We're also gonna have vendor reps in the store. So if you've been to any of our vendor sales in the past, like our Photo Fest event, where we have a bunch of vendors coming and hanging out, it will be kind of like that. Not a ton of vendors, but quite a few, including the gentleman that we have online today, Mr. Evan Parker. So Evan works with Moab, and he's going to demonstrate making your own holiday cards. I don't know how many of you out there are printing your own images, but how cool would it be to take one of your photos and send that out as a holiday card to friends and family, or even be able to do that throughout the year as a special way to say thank you to someone, or just send them one, or just send a note to catch up with folks. So with all that said, I'd love to introduce Evan. Evan, can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do with Moab and Canson?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked with Moab for, I think, 11 years now. I do a lot of the color profiling, the tech support, webinars, demos, all that sort of thing, basically answering all the questions that come up when you're trying to print and when you want to do it quickly and easily. And everybody, when I say quickly and easily, thinks that I'm nuts, but it really is possible. So the goal here today is to, I think a lot of folks are uncomfortable with cards because they're a funny size and you got to get your image on half of it and it's really intimidating. So you just say, I'll do that next year. Well, this is the year to start doing it. And we have some templates to make it really easy. And if you've tried it and gotten stuck, you can kind of play along. And if you have questions, let us know. Kate will take questions as we go through. And at the end of this, I think everybody will feel a lot more confident to sit down and make some cards.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to learning this as well, because some of those challenges that you brought up, I have personally had. And as a photographer and artist, and I like the idea, and I've done this in the past, but I've ordered cards through companies. So the idea of being able to do that kind of at home locally means you can also just do a few, or you can do more, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to put a link into the chat room and the comments for the templates that Evan's going to reference today. And if you have questions, as always, get those posted in the comments or in the chat, depending on how you're watching. We'll do a little bit of Q&A throughout, and then we'll obviously wrap up with some Q&A at the end. So with all that said, Evan, I'm going to kick it over to you so that we can get started.
Excellent. Thank you. So to kick this off, we'll start in PowerPoint for a little bit, and then we'll do a Photoshop demo and a Lightroom demo. And then we'll also talk about borderless printing, because some printers now allow you to print borderless on cards and some don't. And that's a function of the printer itself, not any other limitation. So we get a lot of questions about that. But to start out, we will head into PowerPoint. So there's 3 sizes of the artist cards, and then there are the Moab and Trottelopes. And right now there's that difference because the artist cards used to be a Museo product that we distributed, and now we've taken them over in-house. So depending on what you're looking for, there's a small, a large, and a square. And then kind of in between the small and the large are the Moab and Trottelopes, which are the 7x10. And the 7x10 is kind of a key because that's the one size that allows you to print borderless. Like I said, we'll get to that down the road. And then envelopes are included with all of the standard packs of cards. If you're really into cards and you want to go nuts with it, we do sell them in 1,000 packs. And those are the ones where the envelopes are not included. But for all the boxes that Glazer's has on the shelf, those all have matching envelopes. So the biggest challenge when you're printing a card is, how do you get that image centered? Where do you put it? Where do you put your text? How do you print it? And all those questions are easily solved with a template. So on our website, we have templates for both Photoshop and Lightroom. The Photoshop templates are just Photoshop documents, PSDs, so they'll work in both Photoshop and in Elements. The Lightroom templates you do have to install, and those installation instructions are in our instruction PDF that's on that same page. So moabpaper.com/templates has Lightroom and Photoshop templates, and then instructions for both Mac and PC for both of those applications, because the page setup and some of the printer settings are in different spots depending on whether you're on a Mac or Windows, and that will help clear it up. So if you have specific workflow questions, check out those PDFs for step-by-step instructions. So if you're just getting started with card printing, or you're coming back after a long time, the first thing I recommend doing is, if you have any extra photo paper scraps kind of sitting around, you can go ahead and cut those down to match the size of the cards. So if you're making some sample tests, or you want to see how does this run through my printer, you're not just wasting the cards, because they're a little more expensive because they're scored and cut to the same size. So on the box, it lists, the actual size of the card itself, and you can just use any trimmer or a pair of scissors, cut that down, and then you'll have sheets that you can test through your printer. And if you use something like LaSalle Photomat, then you can use both sides and really simulate printing the card. And one thing that I recommend, and that I'll show here real quick, is go ahead and print the template. The first thing, if you have some test paper, print the template, and then you know exactly what came out of the printer first, what was the last part out of the printer, how did the margins line up. It answers a lot of questions, and then you can easily compare it instead of trying to remember, hey, did it come out right side up? Did it come out upside down? I don't quite remember. It also allows you to check layout. And then once you're comfortable with that, then load up your cards and give one a shot and see if everything lines up the way you were hoping. So the biggest part in terms of setup is that you do have to make a custom paper size for these cards. Obviously 5x7, 8x10, 11/17, those come preloaded in your print driver. But the 4.5 by 5.8 of the small cards doesn't come preloaded in your print driver. The only exception to this is on the new Canon printers, the Pro 200 and the Pro 300 now come with a card built in, which happens to be the 7x10. So that would be the Moab Intrautilopes box. And that 7x10 size on those two Canon printers does allow you to print borderless as well as standard bordered. And we'll go through making a custom size here shortly as well. The one key thing you want to do here when you make the custom paper size is you want to set your margins to 0. And you want to do that because when Photoshop centers an image for print, it doesn't center it on the sheet. It centers it based on the margins. So if you have asymmetric margins, your print's not going to come out centered, even though you've lined it up that way in the preview window. And that takes us right to our print demo. So here we are in Photoshop. I believe it hasn't quite changed, I don't think. I'm going to stop my screen share and then go back to it. All right, hopefully, there we go. Now you can all see Photoshop. So this is our template for the small artist card. And all the templates are laid out the same. There's 2 layers. There's one called outside instructions. And so that's the front and the back of the card. And then there's one called inside instructions, which you can use if you want to put a message on the inside of your card. So the first thing that I recommend doing is actually printing this template. And the reason why I like to print the template is because it lets you see how it comes out of your printer, and it also lets you check and see if your margins are even all the way around, or if you have some asymmetrical margins. So what I have done here through the magic of, it's like a cooking show. So we already have one printed. And when I pull that out, what you can kind of see as we get closer to it is that the left side and the bottom are not exactly the same. And that is often one of the first complaints that folks have when they're printing cards is, hey, what do I do when these margins are not 100% the same? So the first answer to that question is we have to see what that is. So in Photoshop, as we talked about, the first thing you need to do is to make a custom paper size. And to do that, you go File, Print, and the Photoshop print window will open. Now I've gone ahead and I've selected my printer, the Canon Pro 300, and then I hit the Print Settings button. So for the Mac, again, it's a little different on PC, but for the Mac, the first thing here we have is paper size. And because I've used these cards a lot, I already have one saved, but I'm going to go ahead and say Manage Custom Sizes. And I'm going to hit the plus. And then if you double click where it says Untitled, you can give it a name. So we're going to call this Artist Cards Small. And then the first thing I'm actually going to do is this non-printable area that could just say margins. I'm going to select the Pro 300. When I do that, I see that I have 0.13, 0.12, 0.13, and then the bottom is 0.2 inches. So that's why I'm getting that asymmetrical print. And that lets me know that the closest I can get to the edge of the card on that bottom edge is 0.2 inches. So if I want a symmetrical border all the way around, I need to move everything in to be 0.2 inches. So I'm going to know that my card is 4.5 by 9.6. And then as we discussed in the beginning, I've gotten the information I need here. I'm actually going to go ahead and zero these out. And then it gives me the warning that I can't do that. So I have to go back up here to user defined. And because it's the Mac, it will actually erase what I put in. So we have to go back and say 4.5 by 9.6. And then I can set my margins to 0 because, again, I want to have control over where that template is placed on the page. I don't want to let the printer influence that. So I click OK, and that saves it. And then since I'm already in here, I would then go down to Quality and Media, and Matte Photo Paper is our recommended media setting for the Pro 300. I'll hit Save, and we'll get a little warning from Canon that says the selected paper does not have wide margins. This is something that you can ignore. It's just letting you know that they don't recommend you print borderless on this paper because we've set 0 as the margins, but I've never had any issues with it. So you can click OK on that, and it will save. And we can see that I got transposed in my numbers because this is a live demo, and I put in the wrong dimensions. So if we go down to Manage Custom Sizes, we go to the one I just made called Artist Card Small. The width should actually be 5.8, and the height should be 9, which is proof that even if you do this all day, every day, you'll still make mistakes here and there. There we go. Now that looks normal. So now we know that our maximum margin is 0.2 inches, and we have the custom card size. I'm going to go ahead and select Done, and we're going to get back to our template. So, two things I want to get to here. One is how to place an image, and the second one is what to do with that margin information that we just discovered. So if we go to View, Rulers, and then zoom in, which is Command plus or View, zoom in, you can look and see that I have set these margins at 0.125 of an inch. So that's not big enough. So if you have a Pro 300 and you want to amend this template, or if you have another printer and you discover that the margins need to be adjusted, all you have to go to do is to the View menu in Photoshop, and then New Guide Layout. And when I do that, I can check the box down here that says margin, and I'm going to put in 0.2 for all of my margins, because I want to make sure that whatever image I place on here is going to be 100% printed. Now, if you want, you can check the box for clear existing guides, but that will also clear the guide in the middle for the fold line. So I'm going to leave it and just hit OK. And now if I go back to full screen, you can see I have two sets of lines, and the inner set of line is on top of that front panel placeholder. So I hope I'm not getting too much into the math here and confusing folks. But if we know that the front panel of the card is 4.5 by 5.8, and my margins are 0.2, and again, you'll only have to do this math if you make a sample print and you see that it's asymmetrical. My maximum image size can be 4.1 by 5.4, which is a little smaller than what we have here. So if this were my template, you can actually grab the text tool, and right here on this template, make yourself a little note that says image size 4.1 by 5.4. So I know that for me, for my printer that I'm using, that is the maximum size that I can do. So how do I put that into practice? Well, in the instructions, it lays out about cropping. And the biggest thing to note is that the template is set up at 300 pixels an inch. So when you paste in an image, it also needs to be 300 pixels an inch so it doesn't get resized. So in my other tab, I have a holiday scene. And so first I need to crop it so I can just cut and paste into the template. Go to the crop tool. And then from up here in the corner, the second option is width times height times resolution. I want to select that. So my width is 5.4. My height is 4.1. And it needs to be at 300 pixels an inch. And you'll see on the right side of that, there's a little pull down menu, and you want it to say px/inch. So now in my crop box, I have the correct ratio, and I have the correct resolution. So I'm going to square it up. I'm going to hit either the little checkbox up here or press return on the keyboard, and that crops my image. Now I can go edit, select all, and then edit copy, and then go back to the template and edit paste or Apple V. There's my image. Then I go ahead and select the move tool, and I can drag it down, and you'll see that it will center inside those new guidelines that we created. So we know that this image will print properly and centered on the template. Now I want to put a little something on the back. Maybe I have a logo, or I just want to put my name or something like that. When you're printing the horizontal cards, as it notes here, anything on the back panel needs to be upside down. So the easiest way to do that is, first of all, to turn off the instructions. And then I'm going to go to the text tool, and I'm going to drag it from one side to the other, because that ensures that my text will stay centered. So I'm going to say, we'll just say happy holidays 2021. Now I need to make it upside down. So the easiest way is to go I believe it's edit, transform, rotate 180 degrees. So that's going to flip it over. And because my text box was centered, I know it's centered side to side. And then I can grab the move tool again, and I can slide it up or down however I want it to go. So now this is all ready for us to print the outside. So with a sheet of paper loaded in the printer, and keep in mind that when you're loading cards, just like any other photo paper, you always want to load it narrow edge first. So I'm going to go ahead and narrow edge first into the printer. So my paper's loaded. Then I'm going to go File, Print. So because we've already selected our printer, it's saved here. We want to say Photoshop manages colors, so I can select the color profile, which is the Moab Artist card on the Pro 300. And then the initials here stand for matte photo paper. So with all of our profiles, I've added the media setting initials at the end. So as you become more comfortable in printing, instead of having to go to our website or look at your printed sheet about, hey, what media setting do I use? I know from right here for artist cards, it's matte photo paper on the Pro 300. Then when you scroll down, you'll see that I can leave the center print checkbox because we've set those margins to 0, so it's not going to shift it one side or the other. And now I'm going to go back to print settings and verify that, yes, it's the small artist card. I'm going to go into quality and media, matte photo paper. The other thing is you do have to run all these cards through the top feeder or the sheet feeder. The manual feed on all these printers, the smallest it will accept is 8x10. So you do have to use the top feed, so make sure that's selected. Click save there. Again, every time we do this on a Canon, we're going to get the wide margin warning. And click print. So this is going to say the image is larger than the printable area. Now that's because our template is exactly the same size as the sheet, but it's okay because these margins are blank, so we know that they're not going to get printed. So you can just hit proceed here. And that's going to send to the printer. And then through the magic of television, oh, look, it's already here. And one thing to notice, and hopefully you'll have noted this when you print the sample, is that you want to make sure you just keep an eye on which part comes out. And generally, you'll always see the image coming out last. And because of that work that we did, you'll see that it is, in fact, centered on the 3 sides. And when we fold it, we get a really nice centered card with our text, again, centered on the back. So that's how to print the outside of the card. And now we'll quickly switch over and work on the inside of the card. So because these are all in layers in Photoshop, you can actually leave this stuff if you want and just click the little eyeball and turn it off. And there's our original image size note. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn on the inside instructions. So again, our margins remain. And on the bottom panel, we can add our text. So because I know that I'm going to use the bottom panel, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go to the text tool. Say, all the best. Okay, so you can add as much or as little as you want. If you want to write a lot, you can do a text box on the top half and a text box on the bottom half. But now the thing to keep in mind is because I know how my card came out, that's how I'm going to load the paper in the printer. So here's our second card that just came out. And what I'm going to do is when it comes out, image second, we're just going to flip it up and load it back in the printer. So you're going to load it face down, printed image first. I'm going to set that in the printer. And then I'm going to go File, Print, which is grayed out because I haven't accepted my text box. So if you find that you go to File, Print, it's grayed out, click on the Move tool. And now we can say Print. And again, all the options have been saved because we just printed the outside. So Pro 300, the color profile is already saved. And then just to verify, we're going to go to print settings. Here's our paper size, media setting, click save again with the wide margins, and click print and proceed. And that will be coming out shortly. So Kate, after our first Photoshop demo, any questions in the queue?
No, people are being very quiet, but I feel like this part right here that you're demonstrating right now, that's where I would get turned around for sure. So I wonder how common that is as far as like thinking about the direction and placement of things to make sure that you match it all up. Like how many people mess that up? I know I would mess it up at least the first time.
Which is why you can always just cut cut some samples.
Yeah.
And when you're printing that template the first time, when it comes out, go ahead and put a little arrow on it, write on it, say this end out first, this end out second, oriented it this way, because these are just cheat sheets for you.
Right.
So there's no shame in saying, hey, I've got this little thing so that a week, a month from now, when I want to sit down and print more cards, I don't have to repeat the whole process. I can just pull out my cheat sheet and I know exactly how it's going to come out.
Yeah. It just
so
takes
our inside just came out.
Yeah. Just like pausing for a second to think about it before you do it.
Yep. So we loaded, here's our front. I'm going to fold it. So there's the front we just printed. And there is our text oriented properly.
Well done.
On the inside.
Well done. If this was me doing this demo, that probably would have come out backwards. So this is why we have Evan here doing this. And I almost said Devin, because Devin also does some of our printing demos. So, but yeah, that's great. And, relatively painless, I feel like. I'll be honest, I feel like that was like, bam, bam, bam. Here's your steps.
And full disclosure, I haven't printed cards in a number of months. So we actually did a webinar on this last holiday season, and I might have watched my own webinar last night briefly to sort of brush up on the notes.
That's totally fair.
So I didn't
That's
just
practice.
spend the last 3 days, perfecting this so it looks really good for television.
Right.
No, we just just did a little touch up. So it's much less intimidating than it appears when you first sit down. But the templates make a big difference. Printing out that template, making sure that are my margins consistent or not? How has this come out of my printer? And then diving in and making the cards.
And yes, agreed. And one person, Jim, who's one of our regulars and loves Moab paper, by the way, he has commented that he feels like the templates will definitely help him in trying to do this. Devin, did you have a question or a comment?
Can you print photos on the inside?
Can you print photos on the inside?
You absolutely can print photos on the inside.
Wow.
So
I feel like that's a loaded question. I feel like he knew the answer before we asked that question. So
yes.
I mean, and that's perfectly logical that you could be able to do that. And you could even like do a layout of a couple of images or 3 or 5 images to have like a more of a collage style on that card, right? So there's so many options. Absolutely. That you could do.
Yeah. So the more comfortable you are with Photoshop and layering different objects and adding text, you can go for it, because it is just photo paper on both sides.
Right.
The one thing you will want to do is, after you print this, you want to give it some time to off gas. So I would not, especially if you have a lot of text on the inside, I wouldn't fold this for a couple hours. You want to try to just lay it flat, or you can stack them flat, but don't immediately fold it and put it in the envelope, because it has to go out in today's mail because you forgot that you had to mail a card to somebody.
Right.
Because it can kind of transfer the text and ghost it on the part of the card that comes into contact with it, because the ink isn't quite dry. And of course, the whole paper is coated for ink receiving.
Well, now,
so just keep an eye that once you print them, let them sit for an hour or two before you stuff them in an envelope.
So would that also kind of hold true to if you've done the photo side? Should you give it some time to dry out before you print the inside?
Yeah, my preferred workflow, if I'm going to print a bunch of these, is actually to print the inside first, because it's usually a lot more simple, and then print the outside with my image, so the image doesn't get dragged through the printer a second time.
Okay.
And again, that same workflow holds true. So whichever way that card comes out of the printer, I believe for the inside, you have the blank part comes out first. Again, I'm going to take that blank part, put it face down, put it right back in when I want to print the front of it.
Okay.
And this is where you want to use that little template at the beginning, and maybe make yourself a little note that says, I printed this one inside first, I printed this one outside first. And again, you can write on it, and you can even put a little arrow on the paper before you print it, so you know which way you loaded it in.
Well, and then I did want to share an idea for folks. If you're not a graphic designer, but you kind of want to add maybe some holiday flair to your cards, there's websites out there like Canva where you could upload your image, and you can even create a custom size. So you could take those dimensions that Evan referenced create that as a custom size, put your image on there, and then you could add some like holiday bling through the graphics that they have available. And Canva's just one idea, but if you're thinking you wanted to add a little bit of flair, for lack of a better word, that would be another option too. I'm not a graphic designer, but sites like Canva make it a little bit easier for me to add a little oomph here and there to my own stuff when I'm putting it together. So let's talk about a Pro 1000 question coming in from Jim. He's had some challenges with smaller papers. How well do these cards work in the Pro 1000? And would you have a recommendation of how many you might put in the printer to print before you start printing?
Yeah, I haven't had any issues printing these in the 1000. Usually with a matte paper, I don't put more than, 10 or a dozen sheets in there. And the other thing that can help is to fan it before you. So I don't just take a stack of paper out of the box and drop it right in. But if you take those and you just kind of, run your thumb down the edge and get a little air in between the sheets, that'll help them feed.
It's like brand new $1 bills, right? They all stick together.
Yeah.
So if you do
$100 bills.
Or hundreds, yeah. I mean, if you've got it, whatever. But but yeah, that idea is really great because that paper, especially if it's been kind of like compressed in a box for however long, it's gonna want to kind of like hang out together. So that fanning technique will help separate them a little bit. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Jim, you should be good to go. But it sounded like Evan recommended maybe not more than 10 to 12 cards in the flow at the time to come out. So
yeah, enough that you'll remember to come back and restock, before you've gone to the grocery store or something.
All right. So that was Photoshop. You're going to demo Lightroom as well?
I am. Let's head over there now.
All right, cool.
So I've started us off in the print module. Now I have already installed the templates. Again, those instructions are in our PDF as to how to install the templates in Lightroom. You only have to do it once. And once those templates are installed, you'll see them over here in the template browser. There's the standard Lightroom templates. If you click the little arrow, you can expand or close. And now you'll see a folder called Moab Cards. And we have Untitled, Artist Card, large, small, and square, both horizontal and vertical layouts. And with Lightroom, I'm actually going to work with the Untitled, which is the 7x10 finished size. So it's slightly larger than the template that we were using before. And the other great thing about Lightroom is if you want to do, for instance, a set of cards, one thing that I like to do for gifts is I'll do 5 or 10 of my own images printed on cards and give people bundles of note cards to give out. With Lightroom, you can select, a number of images, hit print, and it will put one of those images on each card according to the template. So with the template loaded in, it's incredibly simple. It specifies that for the vertical card, the printing is here on the right. I already have my image sized from my library. So you'll use the same, cropping to the right aspect that we did in Photoshop. And then my guess, 0.75. So I know from the page setup that we did about the margins, I know that if my cell is 6.7, my margins being at 0.13 are a little too small. So the first thing we need to do is make all these margins 0.2 based on my printer. There. And because it's Lightroom, that automatically moves in on my photo. So number one, I know that this will print properly. And then really all I have to do is come down here and make sure that the correct color profile is selected. And one of the questions we get a lot in Lightroom is, well, I don't see my profile. So Lightroom is a little more tricky than Photoshop the first time you want to use a color profile. So once you've downloaded it and installed it, it won't automatically show up in the Lightroom list. You'll need to go to the bottom. You'll need to select Other. And then a list of all of the installed profiles will show up. Now, your list will be a lot shorter than mine because you don't have as many printers you're working with. Fortunately, these are in alphabetical order. So you'll scroll down. All of our profiles start with Moab and then Artist Card. So if I had just installed this, it would be blank and I'd have to check the box and click OK and then it will show up on my list. And once you've checked that box, it's going to stay on the list until you go back and reverse the process. So you don't have to do this every time. So it's the Moab Artist card. You can choose your rendering intent. And then in the lower left, we'll click on print settings. And if you've started with Photoshop, you'll already have that custom paper size. And it just reminded me that that's over in page setup. So print settings, we're going to select quality and media. Again, matte photo paper, top feed, save. And then for our media size, we go to page setup. And because we've already made these custom sizes before they're in here, but again, we're using a new card from the Photoshop demo. So just to go over it again, I'm going to say manage custom sizes. This is the Moab and Trottelopes. So if you were making a new one, you'd hit the plus. Again, 7 by 10, because always the narrower dimension is the width, because you always feed that narrower dimension into the printer first. And then we leave the non-printable area, the margins that user defined, so we can zero them out. So we have full control in Lightroom. I'm going to click OK here and there. So we've double checked the color profile, the media setting, and the paper size, and I can click print. And you also have to remember to load your paper in the printer. So I will do that right now. All right.
And so while we're doing that, we have a very important question. Whose puppy dog is on this card?
That is our niece's dog.
Okay.
She is 2 in December. Her name is Penny. And she is a very energetic pug. And when you open the door, she is gone like a slingshot.
Okay.
But boy, does she love to have her photo taken. And she also loves laundry.
I think most pets
Preferably
do.
the folded laundry that she can bury herself in.
Yes, exactly. Especially
Unfolded's not nearly fun.
The cleaner stuff that just came out of the dryer, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, as much static as possible.
Okay. Well, Devin was mostly curious. I mean, it's a cute pug, so you got to ask, is it your pug or someone else's pug?
She's very cute.
So could you, and maybe I missed this, I feel like I didn't because I'm trying to pay attention. You just added the template into Lightroom, just adding the plus sign, right? In the template browser once you downloaded it?
I believe so. It was a while ago.
Right.
I could go look at my instructions.
But there
to tell you what I did.
Well, no, I mean,
if I hit the plus.
Yeah, I mean, I've installed enough stuff in Lightroom, so if you hit the plus and then you go find that file on your computer that you downloaded, is that right?
Got it. That wants me to create a new template.
Oh.
Let me look at our instructions real quick.
I'm gonna download it right now while we're talking. I should know this, but I haven't installed stuff into Lightroom for printing in like a million years. So get this question answered. Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to. I wonder if it's a click on it. Okay. Well, we'll work on getting that answered for you, Trinda. Let's see. I won't be able to install it because I don't actually have Lightroom on the computer that we are using here today. Are there any other questions coming in from those of you tuning in? We're going to work on getting that question answered for you. Let's see. Very quiet. Evan, do you have anything else to share, or are you looking for those instructions?
I was looking for those instructions, but I'm just going to go back to the demo because it appears that our card has come out.
Okay.
It has. So again, just like from Photoshop, it comes out with the image second and the blank part first. So we're going to look at that. Now, to print the inside, I'm going to do it the same way. So I'm going to kind of lift the sheet up just as it came out and drop it back in. So face down, printed image first. And then going back to Lightroom, I already have an inside that was created. And this was this was one we saved for last year, because last year we all had a rough year.
Oh, well, I think
appreciate
many of us are still
the
having a
whole
rough
humor.
year, so.
Yeah. So just like Photoshop, because I already printed the outside, all the settings stay the same. And because I changed those margins earlier, those have also remained. So all I have to do now is just hit print, and it will respect everything that we set previously.
Which is good. It's good that it remembers those things. But if you change paper size or type or printers, you have to go in and kind of reset a bunch of stuff. So.
And that is the one thing to keep in mind about Lightroom, is Lightroom has very limited text capabilities.
Yes.
So if you want to have text on the inside, you can do that if you want in Word. You could do it in Photoshop if you have both programs. You can do it in the application as long as it's the right aspect ratio, and then just import it into Lightroom as an image, and that will allow you to then print it. But I think Lightroom limits you to one set of characters, or rather one row of text, and you can't move it around very often.
Right, and there's also going to be a limit as to fonts, as I recall. Maybe?
Yes.
So again, kind of going back to the idea of, if you want to kind of get a little bit more fancy, you could use Photoshop or InDesign if you're into that kind of thing, or like these online platforms like Canva, or I can't think of any other ones. I use Canva to kind of like design something that looks a little bit more festive and fun. Because there will be, like you said, some limitations as to how kind of creative you can get with your text in Lightroom, for sure.
Absolutely. So now our card has come out. So here's our inside, and there's our front. So if I fold this, there is our finished card with our text on the inside.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. Evan, are there other things that you have to talk about or demo? Or is that kind of it? I feel like we covered, I know we talked about Photoshop, we talked about Lightroom.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Some folks have emailed in over the year and asked about Capture One. I have very limited experience with Capture One, so I'm not sure if you can actually make templates for it, but you can still go through the instructions and set up a custom paper size and know what size your image is based on the size of the cards and all that sort of thing. So all those measurements and sizes are all in the instructions.
Maybe I'll try that.
We also have,
I use Capture One. Maybe I'll give that a go and see if I can figure it out.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah.
We also have instructions for PC. So if those of you that are out there are using Windows and some of this was a little foreign or the menu options don't exist, there are screenshots in the instructions for PC on how to do the specific things. The one thing we haven't talked about yet, though, is Borderless. So let's talk about that real fast.
Okay.
Going back to PowerPoint. So Borderless printing is available on some printers, and it's limited by the printer driver and the printer itself. It's not a software thing that you can override. As I mentioned, for the Canon printers, the Pro 200 and the Pro 300, the two newest printers, allow you to print Borderless on the 7x10 cards and only the 7x10 cards. If you have an Epson P series printer, so 400, 600, 700, 800, 900, their last two generations of desktop photo printers, you can make a custom Borderless size. And what is kind of hard to wrap your head around for those of you that have been printing for a while, this is the one time when you load the paper in what we would call the wrong direction. So for these 7x10 cards, if you want to print Borderless on one of these Epson machines, you go in and you make a custom paper size, but you put the dimensions in reversed. So instead of the smaller dimension always being first, you put the wider dimension first, because the printer looks at that first number and it says, oh, 5, 7, 10, 11, 13 are all borderless settings available on standard media sizes, 5x7, 8x10, 11x17. And so you're kind of faking it and saying, oh, look, it's the right width to be borderless. So you'll make a custom paper name. I recommend naming it Borderless so that it stands apart from your regular card, which you would load the other way. And then when you load that paper in, again, like the photo there, make sure you load it the wrong dimension. You want to load it the long edge first, and then the printer will print that borderless image on the one side. And again, this is where I definitely recommend testing with some scrap paper or something else so you're not wasting cards, because it can require just a little trial and error to get it all lined up. And then if you're printing borderless, you have to remember to take your image and get it lined up right with the center of the sheet. So if it's on these 5x7 cards, it's a 7x10 sheet. So you absolutely have to have your image sized to 5x7 and get it right in the middle there so it lines up with the score on the middle of the card. And then as you're working through your card printing, if you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email, or there are some threads on our support forum about card printing, and other people have asked questions. But that, that's what this is all about. That's what I'm here for, is to make sure that as you go through your printing journey, that you can get your questions easily answered and then not spend a lot of time and ink trying to figure it out, when chances are someone else or many other people have had the same question that you have, and there's no shame in asking. That's for sure.
Absolutely not. I mean, printing definitely has its challenges. For those of you who are doing your own printing, you've probably experienced some of those challenges. I know that I have, but we can learn from those. And I feel like this whole session really kind of took a little bit of that fear of even trying to do this away. Not gonna lie. I just super simple, to the point, and just very precise and succinct. So I think it's great. Thank you, Evan, for all of that. I know it's super beneficial for those who are interested in trying this out. And I'm looking forward to the challenge of trying to see if I could do this in Chapter 1. So maybe later this week or next week I'll try. If anybody has any last questions, go ahead and get those in. It looks like we might wrap up. If you don't, while I'm waiting to see if anyone does have any closing questions, I do want to take a moment to thank you, Evan and Moab, for your time today. I'm so happy we finally got to do one of these with you after all this past year and a half of not yet been able to do an online session with you. I will mention Evan will be in the store next Saturday. Did we decide 10 to 4?
10 to 4 on, I think it's the 13th.
On the 13th,
correct?
yeah. And so
yes,
he will be in the printing department on the second floor of the store as part of that Fall Fest sale that I mentioned. He'll be doing some free prints, and I think I've talked him into maybe doing some sample cards. So if you want,
absolutely.
So if you want to come in and check the cards out for yourself in person, that will be a great opportunity to do that as well. He'll be doing some free prints too. So if you have an image that you are interested in seeing on Canson or Moab paper, bring that image in on a flash drive or memory card, and you'll be able to get a free print. So that's from 10 to 4 on Saturday the 13th. And again, that's part of our big Fall Fest sale that we're starting on Tuesday with programming online. So online presentations with ambassadors from brands like Canon, Nikon, Sony, I'm trying to remember everybody, Tamron, Sigma, Panasonic. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but that's a lot of them. So that's Tuesday through Thursday. We'll be doing online presentations. Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the in-store sale with super special pricing only on those weekend days. And on Friday, Saturday, we're gonna have a lot of our vendor partners in the store, including Evan from Canson and Moab, Nikon, Sigma, Tamron, Suray, Hanamula, Ilford, I don't know, many brands. There's gonna be at least 12 or so vendor partners in this weekend, next weekend. Sorry, there's other stuff happening this weekend. With that said, there are other opportunities to learn about cool things and get out and create some images this week. Tomorrow night we're doing, or nope, tonight, we're doing a film photo walk. Saturday we have our Photo Essentials 1 and 2. And Saturday afternoon we have a studio lighting workshop. So lots going on over the next couple of weeks. Maybe too much, I don't know. Who does the programming around here?
Crazy person.
We like to keep you busy and give you lots of opportunities to try different things. That's what we like to do. So, all right, everybody. Evan, thank you again so much. So glad we got to do this. For those of you who joined us this afternoon, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you soon and have a great rest of your week.
Take care. Thanks.
And we're off. Okay, there we go. Woo.
Ooh, look, I can do that too.
You must. Hey. No.